Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel for another episode of my Squishy Makeover series. But today's video is going to be slightly different than my normal Squishy Makeover videos. Sometimes when a project is too big, I break it down into different parts. But for this one, as you can see, I have 6 identical Squishies and I wanted to do them all together as a set, kind of like my rainbow sets that I did in the month of December. But since this is going to be a massive project, I am going to have to separate them into parts. But instead of doing like 2 or 3 a week and separating it that way, I wanted to do them all together but kind of separate the video into parts. And so today we're going to focus on the preparation stages of these squishies for a squishy makeover. And so here I am just kind of assessing all the different injuries and cuts and holes and missing pieces that all 6 of these unicorns have. They all seem to have like rips and tears along the wings, the neck, and the tail. This one you can see that I actually started fixing already. I don't remember when. But before we start fixing, we have to start with sanding the surface of all of the squishies. This just gives it some texture to help ensure that the paint that you will be using, which should be fabric paint, but we'll get to that later, will stick better to the surface of the squishy. And so I'm sanding all 6 of the squishies. But as I was saying, I am breaking up this big project into different parts, but these parts are not going to be the same for each video like I did with the December month of squishy makeovers that I did. I am today focusing on the preparation of the squishies, and then we'll get into like the painting in the next part. But as you can see here, after I finish sanding the squishies, I'm using my sharpest and smallest scissors to trim up any loose or rough or messy areas on the squishies. Especially cheaper squishies, they tend to have like a really bad seam. It's just like usually really messy and they have like little bits and pieces sticking out that I prefer to cut off because it makes the final product a lot more even, I feel. I can never get it perfect, and as you can see, sometimes I cut too far and then that just makes holes that you have to fill up later. But I do my best, and I'm trimming off all 6 of the squishies. It's mostly for these just on the seam of the squishy where it's messy. Everything else is pretty fine. And now, as you can see here, I'm going to be using this Tulip Slick fabric paint. This paint is very thick and it's really good for filling up little holes and kind of matching up the seams and just sealing away any tears and seams on it. For squishies, you should always only use fabric paint. I personally use the Tulip brand because it's just the one I've always been easiest to find, and it works well for me most of the time. I would also like to preface this by saying everything that I am showing you all or teaching you all in parentheses is stuff that either I've done and learned through practice or things that I've learned by watching Mariah Elizabeth here on YouTube. Pretty much everything I know about fixing squishies comes from her or just self-practice from doing it. But after a couple passes of filling up the holes and the tears, here you can see how each of the squishies look. At least kind of, it gets a little blurry sometimes. They all have pretty similar issues, little holes, tears. Some of it was on accident for me, trimming up the edges. And they're not perfect. It's never going to be perfect because this is all handmade art and crafting. It's not like a machine making them, but at some point you get to a point where you think it's enough and you just call it done. And that was this for me. I didn't really do anything else prep wise. I didn't glue on anything. Luckily for me, all of the tears and stuff were easy to just fill up with the paint, but sometimes if it is a massive tear or if you are adding something to the squishy, you need actual glue. Now the last step for the preparation and for today's video is a white base coat. A white base coat isn't absolutely necessary. It kind of just depends what battle you want to pick. Especially if you're using like lighter colors or pastel colors, which I will be using, a base coat will really help save time in how many coats of color you have to put on. Sometimes if you're using a really dark color, you really don't need it. I always tend to at least do one coat of paint. To me, I feel like it always helps, even if, unless I'm like using black or like a really dark brown. But if you would rather skip the step and just do like multiple layers of the same color to build up that way, you can also do that. To me, I find that too long and boring. And if I am remembering correctly, I did 2 layers of paint over both sides. Since you have to set them down to dry, it's hard to do all of the squishy at once. Usually for me, if it's a thin layer like this that's just brushed on, it only takes like 1 hour to dry. But if it's like thicker or if it's like the slick paint, it can take anywhere up to 8 hours. But here are the 6 unicorn squishies that I have. They are now fully prepped and ready for paint after these 2 coats of whites. And this is where we will be picking up next week, where we'll be starting with the colors. Here you can see the colors that I already have ready for the squishies. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed this video, even if it was all just prep. Hopefully it was more in detail than some of my other things, in case you also want to learn or try out squishies for yourself. But I didn't want to make this video too long, so I am ending it here. Thank you all so much for watching. Bye!